talk about the Safety Act and the pretrial fairness provision that was put on hold by the Illinois Supreme Court on New Year's Eve, just before it was set to go into effect. And we now have some understanding as to what, if it does go into effect, it's going to cost taxpayers. Good morning, Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop on 92.7 WMAY. Springfield's News and Talk. You can always chime in at 217-629-7970. That's the phone number here. Yesterday in the Illinois Senate Appropriations Committee, they heard from various agencies, including the Illinois Supreme Court, where you had State Senator Chapin Rose ask some questions about how much it's going to cost taxpayers for essentially implementing a pretrial fairness act. So some background here. Early 2021, state legislature passed a measure called the Safety Act, and it's a sweeping criminal justice reform and police regulation bill. And in it included, requiring police to have body cameras and certain types of training and so on. But it also had a bunch of different provisions for criminal justice reforms, including the end of cash bail statewide. And that was delayed to start January 1st of 2023. Well, there was a lawsuit filed by not just one, but like 62 different states' attorneys across the state saying that the no cash bail and the Safety Act is unconstitutional. A Kankakee County judge heard a combined challenge of that and declared that the law is unconstitutional, saying that it violated the state constitution's Victims' Bill of Rights, but also the separation of powers when it comes to the legislature taking away bail, which the state constitution says is a surety. And surety has been argued in court as something of monetary value. So if you're taking that away, you're amending the Constitution without going to the people to ask for their opinion on changing the state constitution. So those arguments have been heard, right? So the law has been suspended. They heard arguments in the Illinois Supreme Court last month, and the Illinois Supreme Court has taken that under advisement as to whether they're going to reverse the Kankakee County courts and implement the Pretrial Fairness Act, or if they're going to uphold the Kankakee County Court, declaring the Pretrial Fairness Act is unconstitutional. We won't know that for a few more weeks. How many more weeks? I can't tell you. You can't really determine what the courts do or do not do. But the question of how much the end of cash bail is going to cost Illinois taxpayers was raised yesterday during a Senate's Appropriations Committee hearing. State Senator Chapin Rose, a Republican, he asked pointedly to the Supreme Court officials there as to how much this is going to cost.
The 6.1% increase, $30 million. How much of that will be attributable to the Safety Act coming online, if it comes online?
Now, the Chief Justice, Mary Ann Teese, didn't say one way or the other as to how they're going to rule on this, and simply just deferred to some of the administrators who are dealing with the budgets. Here's one of those administrators.
Senator Rose, this is Marcia Meese, AOIC Director. That's largely unknowable. It's dependent on so many factors. We know from the experience in New Jersey, which did significant bail reform a few years ago, that in the year after the statute went into effect, there was a tremendous uptick in appeals. So obviously, you're going to have more people to handle those appeals if that happens here. There are also factors at the trial court level. Unknowable. How aggressive is your state's attorney? How does your public defender approach the cases? It's just, you could go on and on and on. It's really not a number that we, as Kara said, we haven't included it here. And it is largely unknowable.
So we don't know what it's going to cost taxpayers, and the costs incurred could be a variety of pretrial services. Because again, the issue is no cash bail for criminal defendants. These are individuals who've been charged with a crime but not convicted of a crime. And the argument of getting rid of cash bail is people of means can pay bail and get out. People of lesser means don't have the money to bail out, so they get stuck in jail and they languish until they go to trial. So the thinking is that to make it equal across the board and for equity purposes, you don't have cash bail at all. And a lot of the discretion is going to be up to the judges, but if you have no cash bail being implemented, that means you're going to have a lot of pretrial services, be it electronic monitoring, be it drug testing, be it having officers have to go out and issue summonses to people who didn't show up to court and keep issuing summonses for people who do. That's going to be a cost, and it's going to be incurred by the taxpayers. You and I, we foot the bill for all of government. I mean, it's sometimes you hear, state spending. No, it's taxpayer spending. So taxpayers are going to be impacted by this, but we don't know by how much, according to the Illinois court system. Chapin Rose, he went on further to ask questions about whether or not this is implemented, or the court's going to have to come back to deal with this. Here's a little bit more of that debate yesterday.
That I think is in flux. The rest of the funding will go to support this operation throughout the 70 counties that we have.
And this official is talking about the request for around $23 or $24 million for pretrial services to help out 70 different counties if they need the pretrial services. They say this isn't from the Safety Act. This is actually from a 1987 law that sets up statewide pretrial services. But a lot of counties didn't have the means to do it, and it was never really funded, so they're looking to actually fund this.
That I think is in flux. The rest of the funding will go to support this operation throughout the 70 counties that we have. So that's personnel, that's drug testing, that's electronic monitoring, case management, leases, et cetera. It's the infrastructure of this agency.
So they're requesting that amount, but again, they say that is not based off of the Pretrial Fairness Act. That's just based off of pretrial services that they are looking to implement statewide to assist counties who need that assistance. So they're looking for like 71 personnel and 20 some odd $1 million extra in the budget. Again, this is before a Senate Appropriations Committee. But again, the question of are you going to have to come back for a supplemental if indeed there's the Safety Act's implemented?
If it does go, there was a statement made 10 minutes ago that the costs are unknowable if it does go into effect. And I guess my simple question was, so then if it does go into effect, should we anticipate as appropriators that you'll be back with a supplemental at some point in time in 24?
And I guess this is Marcia Meese again, and my simple answer would be maybe.
Yeah, okay.
So maybe they're going to have to come back for some more tax dollars. State Senator L.G. Sims, who helped craft the Safety Act and the Pretrial Fairness Act, he also sounded off yesterday during the Senate Appropriations Committee hearing.
There was the statement made that the budget request is unknowable at this time, but I think that the fact the hours that were spent researching the experience of other states is instructive for us. It does give us the ability to understand and know what that will look like after whatever happens with the Safety Act. We know that there are some ways for us to be able to predict what will happen. And I think it was also instructive. Director Smith mentioned that regardless of what happens, there was a plan to move to this statewide pretrial services system prior to the passage of the Safety Act. And one of the recommendations of that commission was to do what we are doing right now.
Again, L.G. Sims is laying out that this has already been the plan to bring about pretrial services, whether or not the no cash bail provision is implemented or not. They still are moving forward with the pretrial services that are going to be funded by tax dollars to help out counties that need that assistance.